The recent revelations of the electoral bonds data brought forward some worrying trends that indicate bribe for contracts, possible extortion through agency actions, and a large scale money laundering activity. But what makes the bond so sinister is that it gives the political parties plausible deniability. And looking at how BJP controls all investigative agencies, I doubt that any investigations will take place, not against the BJP at any cost. So the question now is, why should you care? In a recent video, Nitin Gadkari proudly claimed that he had no dearth of money. He said that he had worked with so many contractors, but none of them could ever accuse him of taking bribes. Watch this.
मुझे इतना काम करने का मौका मिला, एक ठेकेदार आपको नहीं मिलेगा कि जो बताएगा कि ठेका लेने के पहले मंत्री जी के घर पर जाना पड़ेगा। करप्शन फ्री, टाइम बाउंड, क्वालिटी कॉन्शियस और गारंटी के साथ अच्छा काम होगा।
Now people tend to forget things rather quickly, but it is common knowledge now that Megha Engineering and Infrastructure Limited is BJP's largest contributor through electoral bonds. And they were awarded huge contracts after donating to BJP. I pointed it out in the comment section of this video, and some BJP bhakts jumped in to defend their favorite party. Their arguments were 1. पार्टी चलाने के लिए पैसे तो लगते हैं, देश के कंपनी से ही लिया है, चाइना से तो नहीं लिया। 2. हर पार्टी इलेक्शन से पहले पैसे बांटती है लोगों में वोट के लिए, वो पैसे कहीं से तो आने हैं। 3. बीजेपी ने इलेक्ट्रल बॉन्ड से लिया, कांग्रेस इलीगली चंदा लेती थी, एक ही बात है। After hearing these arguments, I realized that BJP's propaganda machine has successfully managed to downplay the electoral bond scam. In fact, the main man himself said this recently.
I want to ask you about the electoral bonds data that has been published. Do you think this has caused some embarrassment to your party, a setback?
मुझे बताइए ऐसा क्या किया है कि जिसके कारण मुझे सेटबैक हो। मैं पक्का मानता हूं जो लोग इसको लेकर के आज नाच रहे हैं और गर्व कर रहे हैं वो पछताने वाले हैं। मैं जरा पूछना चाहता हूं इन सभी विद्वानों को कि 2014 के पहले जितने चुनाव हुए, चुनाव में खर्चा तो हुआ ही होगा ना, बिना खर्चा नहीं। कौन एजेंसी है जो मैं बता पाएगी भाई पैसा कहां से आया था, कहां गया और किसने खर्च किया है? क्या ये तो मोदी ने इलेक्ट्रल बॉन्ड बनाया था, इसके कारण आज आप ढूंढ पा रहे हो कि पैसा बॉन्ड किसने लिया, कहां दिया, कैसे। वरना तो पहले तो पता ही नहीं था, चुनाव तो खर्चा होता था। आज आपको ट्रेल मिल रहा है क्योंकि इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड थे।
Now this is a blatant lie. Our honorable Prime Minister is lying through his teeth. The electoral bonds were designed to hide the money trail from the public. The only reason we now know who paid to whom is because of the Supreme Court's judgment. In fact, his claim that there was no method to track political funding earlier is also a lie. You can watch Pure Economics video on this topic for more details. I will enclose the link in the description. So let us discuss why the electoral bonds are by far the largest scam carried out in this country, and the most audacious one at that. When we argue about BJP, Congress, political funding, elections, we tend to forget what political parties are actually supposed to do when in power. Look at this comment from a netizen. सारी पार्टियां पैसे देती हैं वोट के लिए, चाहे वो कोई भी हो. This guy has conveniently ignored the fact that winning the elections is not the end of the story. Once in power, the government has some duties: governance, policy making, infrastructure development, jobs creation, etc., etc. Even if we forget the electoral bonds for a second and think about why any company would donate to a political party, we are faced by a hard fact. Corporates donate to political parties to protect their interests. Now imagine a couple of honest political parties, BLP and Congress if you will. A corporate called Bhavani might donate to BLP thinking their ideology would lead to them making policies that would be good for Bhavani's business. So he would want them to come to power. This donation is okay. Another company called Lala might donate some money to both the major political parties, hoping to get its licenses and permits passed easily, regardless of who comes to power. This donation is also okay. Any entity donating to a political party would naturally hope to reap some benefits when that party comes to power. But the moment a political party takes money and grants a contract to that company against public interest, that becomes a bribe, a kickback. what does public interest mean here? You see these infra projects that Megha Engineering or Navyuga Engineering got after donating huge amounts of money through electoral bonds were funded by public money. The government said that these companies won bids for those projects.
इस टेंडर में जिस कंपनी ने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जीता 5 लोगों ने टेंडर भरे कंपटीशन हुई और हैदराबाद की एक मेघा इंजीनियरिंग करके कंपनी उन्होंने काम लिया.
But why then did they have to pay so much money to BJP in bonds? Anyone who has worked in the purchasing department of any XYZ company can tell you that it is rather easy to create a fake bidding process if you have decided to award an order to a certain vendor. Now, if a company is paying crores and crores of money to BJP to get certain projects, it is safe to assume that they stand to make a tenfold profit over their investment, which at this point includes what they spend on the project as well as the money that they paid to the ruling party to get that project. The project would have cost way lesser if it had been awarded through an honest bidding process. That difference in cost, that is the scam. The fact is that if the ruling party has awarded contracts like this, they really can't ask for quality assurance. That is the scam. The Uttarkashi tunnel that caved in, trapping 41 workers inside, is a good example of this. That is the project Navyuga Engineering is handling. Putting public safety at risk and getting paid for it, that is the scam. The Sunil Mittal-led Bharti Group paid rupees 150 crores to BJP, and the government took a U-turn in their policy regarding allotment of satellite spectrum in 2023, which benefited OneWeb India, that got the license and satellite authorization without an auction process. OneWeb India is a subsidiary of UK-based Eutelsat OneWeb, where Bharti Group is a major stakeholder. Read the full report from scroll.in. I'll enclose the link in description. The funny thing is that this policy adopted by the Modi government was the same as the one adopted by the UPA government back in 2012. You know, the one which was dubbed as the 2G spectrum scam? That was one of those scams that BJP touted hard about to come to power in 2014. One guy argued that Congress had been a scam party. I said that's why people voted them out. But the hypocrisy is that now you see BJP pulling the same stunts, but you're arguing in the favor of BJP's corruption. Next up, let's talk about the 7 pharma manufacturing firms that failed drug quality tests and then gave money to political parties through electoral bonds. It isn't hard to tell that these donations were to avoid agency actions. This is an example of parties risking public health and safety. The scam here is the crores and crores of money earned by these firms by selling substandard medicines to the Indian public. Another curious element of the electoral bond saga has been the donations received by companies that was either a large part of their net profit or exceeded their profits altogether. In some cases, large donations were made by companies who had been showing losses year after year. Here's a list on the screen for your reference. Now, whether this was a case of money laundering or not can only be determined after investigations, which, as I mentioned earlier, might not happen at all. Now, here's a list of Partywise donations received through electoral bonds, which was made public after the Supreme Court order. BJP earned 6,060 crore rupees, which is around 47% of the total electoral bonds, while Trinamool Congress and Indian National Congress were on second and third position with 1,610 crores or 12.6% and 1,422 crores or 11% respectively. And the fact that TMC and INC also received donations through electoral bonds is being used by BJP supporters to give BJP a clean chit. And people who try to defend BJP by saying Congress had done so many scams in their time should also revisit the scams and their investigations to see if there were any convictions. The Congress was voted out for the scams that happened during the Manmohan era. And now we have people trying to defend BJP with this warped logic. If you are against corruption, you should be against all corruption, not just against the one that was done by Congress. And I've become tired of this argument that BJP received nearly half of all electoral bonds because nearly half of all MPs are from BJP. Now listen to me carefully. Before the introduction of electoral bonds, political parties were obliged to declare any donations above 20k to the income tax department. And there was a cap on how much any corporate could donate to a political party, which was 7.5% of their net profit for the last 3 consecutive years. This was a measure to control possible quid pro quo activities, like giving contracts in exchange for donations. But in 2017, BJP was the party that brought in the electoral bonds, which took off the upper limit of donations from corporates and also made the donations completely secretive, where these companies did not have to declare their donations to tax authorities at all. As a result, BJP and other parties earned way more money in absolute numbers than they ever did in the history of this country. And now we know that most of it was from corporates. This means that essentially the industrialists were controlling the people's representative. People's representative. These are elected officials. Their salaries are paid through public money. Let us not forget that. A lot of BJP apologists justify taking donations from corporates by saying elections में खर्चा तो होता ही है, as if that makes it okay to compromise on public interest. The salaries that these MPs and MLAs draw comes from public funds, and their duty is to the public first. The rich industrialists make up for less than 1% of India's population, which means that the political parties prioritize the need of 1% while ignoring the need of the rest 99%. By bringing in the electoral bonds, BJP showed their love for big money, their intent for corruption, and an unscrupulous attitude towards the people of this country. How do we forget what the ministers are actually supposed to do and get caught up in this narrative of election and power?
येडे लाइक कर, सब्सक्राइब कर और कमेंट भी दे मार।